Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Fronteras, A Changing America. I'm Monica Ortiz Uribe. Today on the show, my guest is New Mexico Congressman Steve Pearce. He represents District 2, which encompasses all of southern New Mexico and includes the cities of Las Cruces, Deming, and Hobbs, his hometown. Representative Pearce is up for re-election this year. His challenger is Democrat Roxanne Lara, an attorney from Carlsbad. And Representative Pearce has served 5 terms. Welcome, Congressman.
Good to be here. Always nice to visit with you and KRWT.
Yeah, and it's nice to have you. So I wondered if we'd start by you telling me a bit about your personal history, how and where you grew up, and what you did before coming to Congress.
Absolutely. I was born actually just across the state line in Texas. Dad was a sharecropper over there. When he went broke, I was about a year and a half old. They moved just to the oil field. He had no experience, took an entry-level job, stayed there for about 28 years before getting his first promotion, raised 6 kids.
This is in Hobbs?
In Hobbs, yes. So beginning salary was $262, raised 6 kids on that. I can remember my mom and dad gathering Coke bottles to help make ends meet. Later we moved to a small 5-acre farm. We grew vegetables and sold them on the side of the road just to buy shoes, frankly. From that, we were able to graduate from Hobbs High, come to New Mexico State. Here I won the draft lottery in my junior year. I think it's going to be the only lottery I will ever win, but I did get free flying lessons, a trip to Vietnam. That service to the country then laid the way that when I was in Congress, absolutely it was one of the more critical things that was kind of foisted on me. It was kind of forced on me because I was not voluntarily going. And so from there, came back from Vietnam. I met my wife in Hobbs. We bought a small business, built that up to a significant business, loved being in business every day, began to watch what the government was doing to impede just the ability to create jobs.
Tell me about the business.
We worked down hole in oil wells, and so we were like plumbers, very blue-collar jobs, worked down hole 4,000 or 5,000 feet. If you can imagine changing a light bulb a mile away, that's kind of what we would do. We'd go down and retrieve things out of the wells. It's called a fishing and rental tool company. We fish things out of the well, you know.
Things that fall down into the
fall
well.
Things, maybe sometimes things collapse down there. Just the same thing as happens in the plumbing in your house, and so we would go fix the plumbing down in the well. Fascinating business.
Yeah. How long did you do that for?
We did that for 14 years and just quietly built the business up one employee at a time. 1999, one of the most significant things happened, and that was the price of oil fell to about $6. 80% of our work disappeared in one day, 24-hour period. People in our area were laying off 60 and 70% of the workforce. My wife and I had talked each individual to coming with us, and we said we can't let them lose their houses. So we promised our employees that as long as we have a company, we'll let it go broke before we lay anybody off. And I said, we'll also give you notice. So I don't want you sitting here worried every day that tomorrow's the day. I'll give you 30 days notice before we do anything sudden. We kept every employee for 11 months. Finally, I told my wife, we got 30 more days of cash and we're going to have to shut the company down. I said, if something doesn't happen in the next 10 days, I'm going to tell the employees. And it was just as if a miracle began to happen. The price went suddenly back to 20. The work started immediately. And again, I just feel like the people who did the right things in life will be rewarded. Those times test us as individuals. Not what we talk about, but what we do under pressure. And when I look back on my life, that's one of the more dramatic times when Cynthia and I were looking at each other saying, this is a team that we built and they believe in us and we believe in them, and we'll sink with them or we'll win with them.
Very good. Yeah, what an incredible story. I wonder then, something that interested me is last year you got quite a bit of press for being the lone Republican on the New Mexico delegation,
Yes.
among the New Mexico delegation, and representing a district that's where the population is over half Hispanic. And I wonder what you make of that sort of attention.
Well, that's the same question I got from the Wall Street Journal the day after the election. How do you get elected? And I said, I don't know. I said, I really don't notice people. I said, come out. I said, I just work hard. That's all I know what to do in life. I'm not very skillful at many things, but I'm very tenacious. I work hard, and when I'm knocked down, I get back up. I said, come travel with me and you write what I do. I don't know. And because I don't pay attention to things like that, I don't calculate, I just go out and bust it. And so he actually, the Wall Street Journal guy came and got in the car with us for 2 days. I said, now once we leave, I'll be back tomorrow night, and we're gonna make about 500 miles, and I'm gonna do about 20 events. So you're in for all of it or none of it. He said, I'm on. About that night, he said, good gracious, you're going to do this again tomorrow, aren't you? I said, I'm going to do it again every day I'm elected, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here not for the status. I get nothing out of status. Growing up dirt poor, you realize in a hurry, it's either you're producing or you're not. So I run for the job because of the potential to help people. And so I do it every day. That's
You've
how it
got
works.
you're away from Washington. You said for 10 days.
Oh, yeah,
now.
and during a year we'll spend half the time here, half the time in Washington. And when I'm here, my first 6 years, we counted, and I averaged 10 days a year in Hobbs, in my own home. The rest of those 160, 180 days, they were out here sweeping across the district. I tell people we're just like windshield wipers. We just sweep from one side of the state to the other side. And it's 9 hours from my house to the other side of the state.
Yeah. Well, one of the subjects I wanted to bring up was immigration.
Absolutely.
And it seems stalled or even dead in Congress. And I wonder what your sense is and why this is an issue that doesn't seem to be moving forward.
If you don't believe in life after death, just go to Congress, because everything is dead can come back to life in a second. So understand that to start with. On my side of the state in Hobbs, immigration was never a big issue. So when I got elected, I realized that I had a new voice that I had to represent. And so we did 20 town halls in the first maybe 6 months of my service. 20 town halls, and we began right south of here, Santa Teresa area, Anthony, on down along the border, sweep up across through the western side of the state, back around. I mean, we made the whole state 20 different town halls. And in that, I developed the belief system that I would carry through till today. I haven't evolved at all. 3 things need to happen. We need to secure the border, because every nation needs to know who's coming and going. Mm-hmm. Secondly, we have to reform legal immigration, because it's just drastically broken. We work on a lot of immigration cases. Initially, I had 2 people who both naturalized from Mexico, and they had a heart for it, and I had a heart for it, because growing up poor, many times we were out in the cotton fields chopping cotton, picking cotton with the braceros, and so I had seen up close these lives. And so fix the legal immigration system, give people a little bit easier chance, secure the border, and then that leaves you with a static problem, not a dynamic problem. Mm-hmm. You can't fix your floor if the roof's leaking, and you fix the floor and it's going to rot again. So you have to fix them in order. Secure the border, fix legal immigration, and now then, what do we do with the people who are here? I would do that very simply. No fines, no jail time, no nothing. Just ask them the question, do you want to be a citizen or do you not? If you want to work, we're going to get on a work program. If you want to be a citizen, then you have to go through the process that's established. If we want to update that process, fine. But we can't, it's unfair to people who are waiting, following the law, sometimes 18 to 20 years with us helping. How can we describe to those people that we're going to put people over here that come illegally and get in front of you? So again, just solve the problem is my idea.
Well, right, and I wonder, speaking about the population that's already here, and in some of these, in a lot of the cases, you've got a family that's got mixed status, right? And I wonder, what do you say to a family where there's parents that are here undocumented, they've got U.S.-born children? How do you say to them? Do you expect them to leave the country and wait so many many years.
I would let them
before
make the
coming
choice.
back.
I would let them make the choice. If you want to work, then I don't see that you have to go home. We just put you on a work program. But that's a choice you're going to have to make, and maybe it's a hard choice because maybe you would rather be a citizen, but you want to feed your family first. That's a hard choice, but it's a choice that you put yourself into that position. So again, I want to solve the problem. I want to give legal status to where people are not living in fear every day. But we've got to somehow, in policy, figure out the fairness to those people who are following the procedures.
So that would be for the people under what you would propose, the people who choose to stay here and work, they would not have the opportunity to pursue citizenship without leaving the country and getting in the back of the line,
basically,
as you say.
unless someone can tell me how we can do it more fair.
Yeah.
Fairness has got to be at the essential part of any law, and so we can't just simply do compassion, because compassion to one is uncompassionate to another. So fairness is the key, in my opinion, of every law that we have to implement.
Well, and then then you would, if you decide to stay under a worker permit without the option to become a citizen without leaving the country, then I wonder if that would create a group of millions of people that would be here living in the country without the ability to vote or have full citizenship rights. And I wonder if you're comfortable with that, because many might choose not to. They might choose to stay and feed their families.
We got about half the U.S. population today that doesn't vote in any election. So the idea that I should become somewhat alarmed by this, I think, is trying to stretch across and justify a different outcome. People every day don't vote. They're not involved. My family was not very engaged, I will tell you, in politics at all. They were just trying to eke out a living. And so the people who want to be citizens, fine, we understand it, and we're going to try to make a better process for it. But until then, the only fair thing I understand is to go through the same process anyone else does. And so again, there are people who would give everyone amnesty. There are people who would deport every single one who's here illegally. Mine is kind of the middle, the compromise position. We give legal status, but we can't allow you to be treated better and than the people who are following the law as it exists today, and that's just where we stand on it.
And how does that plan ring among your fellow members in Congress?
I would say 6-8 years ago, I was the lone voice on the Republican side, maybe 2 or 3 saying that we've got to have a different way. When I first got there, I said we've got to do something with immigration. You don't see it in y'all states, but we live it in our district, and we must start doing things that put things in order. Families are just trying to feed their loved ones is the reason they come here generally. And so I began talking, and many of my the peers in Congress were saying they got to go back home, and got to deport them, got to kick them out, whatever it was. I say, please, my friends, listen to the sound of those words. I said, I live with people who've been here for sometimes 15, 20 years, and so they're good people, they're hardworking people, they're the kind of people that we would like to be in this country. And so back then, not very many. Today, I think if we took a guest worker program to the floor, I think it would pass with a lot of Republican votes. The reason that things appear to be stalled out is that the Senate has passed an amnesty plan. The Speaker has said quite adequately that we're not going to take up the amnesty plan.
This would include, this is an immigration plan that would include a path to citizenship.
Whatever pathway, whatever you want to call it. And so the Speaker has, I think, adequately tested the waters on the Republican side, and they're saying no to amnesty, whatever you call it, no matter kind of what the form it is. And but I think they would say yes to legal status as guest workers. So exactly how that would all work out, I don't know. But I think when everyone says, well, it's dead right now, that's because the Speaker said it is not coming up. Well, those are positioning comments. It's like trash talk on the basketball court. He's telling the President, I think, in the Senate, I cannot get to where you all are. I don't have the votes. It's going to be very contentious. So please come our direction. I will guarantee you that if the Senate today said, okay, we're going to come, we're going to work on a guest worker plan, we're going to agree to it unilaterally or bilaterally, we're all going to work on it together at the same time so that neither side can trick the other. The Senate can't trick the House can't trick the Senate. And I think if they did that, something would pass right now.
Okay.
That's my belief.
Okay. Let's talk about then the undocumented youth, those that were brought here illegally as children. So last week, you and the other Republican members voted for the Enforce Act, which would allow Congress to sue the executive branch for not enforcing federal law, right? And so one of the programs could be affected is is the Deferred Action Program, which is allowing undocumented youth to work legally here and stave off deportation. I wonder what your stance is when it comes to this particular group.
Sure,
of immigrants.
I think that would be the group that most people refer to as the Dreamers.
Correct.
And I tell the Dreamers frequently when they come to my town halls, and I say, I'm willing to solve your
They're protesting outside your
Yeah,
office,
absolutely,
I think.
Yeah. I said, I'm willing to solve your problem with one caveat. What's that? That you tell me how we don't end up here again with another million 10 years from now. We can't just, the sign of a failed country or a failed business is one that has to solve the same problems over and over and over again. So tell me how to stop it, because I would gladly solve the million who are here. I don't think there's much even dissent. The question is, how do we get the system in control? That's the big question. And frankly, no one nationwide has an answer. If we're going to leave the border open, if we secured the border, and if we secured the border to where we could say to people, there's a legal way to get into the country, please go over, come through the gate, don't come through the back door.
Well, it seems even that way. People are still coming across. I mean, with all the increased enforcement at the border, the manpower, the technology, the stricter laws. I mean, it's still happening, and I wonder either way.
Yeah, but we're the only country in the world that allows such open borders. You can't go to Mexico that way. You can't cross the other direction. I can't go down.
So I was just there and had a permitting nightmare not too long ago. But we got in.
Okay, so I mean, but that's an essential question. So yes, the circumstance with the people is a significant thing. What do we do? But the bigger question is, what are we going to do to get the system in control? Not the kids, not the people looking to work, but the U.S. government, which cannot seem to solve the problem. That's where I think the great question is.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not. It's certainly a complex issue, and a lot of people's lives that
Absolutely.
that hinge on it.
Lives that all of us know. I mean, people come to my town halls and say, I don't want to be a citizen. All I want to do is work. I'm very sensitive to that. Very sensitive.
Well, let's talk about the oil and gas industry in New Mexico. You yourself said your business was in the oil and gas, and I also you get substantial campaign contributions from the industry. So I wonder what you think of the expansion of this industry in New Mexico. Whether I think it makes up about almost a fourth of the state general fund,
Yes.
the contribution, and so. Yeah, what do you make of its expansion, and is it healthy for the state's economy? And should the state be looking at diversifying into other industries?
Well, first of all, should the state be looking at diversifying? Absolutely. But is it healthy? Absolutely. I will tell you that people who are here on green cards can make $120,000 a year right now in Lee County, Eddy County, or Chavez County, driving trucks. No education, nothing. That's the value of what this is bringing to the east side of the state. So I've been telling people on this side of the state for the last 3 to 5 years, please, if you need jobs, come that direction.
Yeah, I understand you were you helped some
We just recently had a job fair. I met Rafael Ramos. He's a pastor down in Opera. And same thing, we need jobs and we need money from Washington. I said, well, there's no more money in Washington. We're printing it now. It's like monopoly money. So no more money is coming from Washington, and it won't make it to an opera. It'll stop, in Kansas City or somewhere. So I said, why don't I bring jobs?
Yeah.
And they said, well, that sounds easy, but it's impossible. I said, no, I'll show up. We just had that about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Had 250 people show up, and I told Rafael, I'm going to bring people over here. They're going to hire that day, but don't Don't show up with a bunch of drug addicts, people who can't qualify to work. Make it people who want to feed their families, responsible people. 250 people showed up. The best response to many of our job fairs. They drug screened over 100 that day, hired 62 people in one day. They're used to hiring 3 and 4 at a job fair. So it worked well for the companies and worked well for the people in this area.
And these are companies in eastern New Mexico,
yes,
right? And I wonder why you had to go to Sunland Park to do the
I went to Sunland Park because it's a very poor area. And they tell me we need jobs. And I said, you provide the people and I'll bring the folks over here.
Yeah.
There aren't enough people in the eastern side of the state to take the jobs. It's the reason they're paying so much. Right now, the police force in Hobbs is thinking about offering a $50,000 bonus for policemen to pay towards a house. You come here, you work 5 years, you stay here 5 years. We'll give you the $50,000. It's just a gift if you'll stay 5 or 10 years. I don't know.
So there's a worker shortage in eastern New Mexico.
There's a worker shortage there.
And that's where these companies are concentrated.
And they're working in the oil and gas industry. So is it good? Yes, the people in an opera and just in that southern part, 62 jobs, people making 60 to 100,000 a year, where the average income is probably under 20,000 a year. I will tell you, that's very powerful. So yes, it's good.
So then I wonder if it's all concentrated in the eastern part of the state. The drilling takes up a lot of substantial water, and this is in one of the most water-stressed areas in the state. I mean, you've got Roswell and Carlsbad fighting over water, the Pecos River running low. I wonder if that worries you, and what kind of assurances can you have that there will be enough water in this region for people to drink, to farm, to maintain the ecological health of the land for future decades?
So back it up one stage and say, do we want the jobs or not? That's the essential question of what you're asking. If we want the jobs, then we need to solve the water problem. I know 2 companies that right now are working to clean up water. New Mexico has a lot of water. It just doesn't have a lot of clean water. And so it has under Tularosa and Alamogordo, maybe a trillion gallons of water over there, enough for hundreds of years. But it is water that is somewhat salty, not terrible salty.
This is the underground water.
Absolutely.
Well, it's the Ogallala, I can't pronounce it.
No, the Ogallala is further east, and that's just under the very eastern edge of the state. But when we produce oil and bring oil and gas to the surface, we bring a lot of water, and I'm talking maybe 1 million gallons a day just in Hobbs alone, in the city limits of Hobbs. Oil wells in the city limits maybe produce that much. So the task is then to clean that water up. So we've got plenty of water. We've got at least 2 companies who are beginning to clean water to reuse it. So they take water that's brought up out of the wells, they reuse it. And so the answer is, if we want the jobs, then solve the engineering problems. Don't run jobs out of the state because we have questions that need to be answered. Let's find the prosperity. Let's find how families like my mom and dad can feed their kids, have decent livings, and just live in peace. I mean, that's what a good, solid, prosperous economy is about. And the oil and gas is bringing that to New Mexico. Without the oil and gas industry, I will tell you that we would not have the surpluses. The surpluses in the state budget are being driven by 3 counties. That's Lee County, Eddy County, and Chaves County, right there in the southeast part of the state.
So you're saying the water situation can be managed?
Absolutely, we can manage it, and we must manage it. Yes, we're an arid state. It's one reason I stay
in a severe drought.
And it's one reason I stay after the Forest Service. The estimates are that we would increase the drinking water dramatically if we cut the trees back to what Mother Nature would do. The trees, historically, our forest would have about 50 trees per acre in New Mexico because it's a dry state, and then when the drought hits.
This is in the forested regions, like in the north?
In the forest, international forest. In places like Hobbs, we don't have any trees at all. We got 0 trees per acre. But international forest, 50 trees per acre. Because of our management of the national forest, it's now 2,500 trees per acre, and they suck all the water up before it can percolate in and recharge our streams. So the most powerful thing we can do for water in our streams, whether it be in the Pecos or whether it be in the Rio Grande, is start managing our forest where that water would percolate in, recharge those streams and aquifers.
You're saying the trees are sucking up the
yes,
water?
Yes, the trees. You got 2,500 versus 50.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, look at your yard. If you have trees in your yard, the grass doesn't grow right around the tree, does it? Yeah, it's because the tree is sucking the water out before it gets a chance to grow the grass.
Well, but before we wrap up, I want you to talk about the waste isolation pilot
Absolutely.
plant outside of Carlsbad, where there was an underground truck fire. The Department of Energy went and wrote up a report, found a lot of safety-related problems there. What do you make of the report? And can this? Do you think this facility can reopen again safely?
Absolutely, I believe it can reopen safely. The truck fire was actually contained without spreading or causing any danger to the material that's stored there. So it was an isolated incident, but the report actually shows very sloppy procedures. My wife and I had a small company in which we drove trucks, and so I'm very familiar with everything that they're talking about. And so the process needs to be improved, but the underlying plan is very sound, trapping that waste there in these salt beds that will encase it. There's no water above it or below it, so it's long-term safe. Again,
do you have any idea when it might reopen, or if it'll reopen? And
yes, they're bringing in a team that is specializing in this, and they say they should be going in this week, and they'll know exactly how long it'll take after they get down, take a look at it humanly. But they say without doubt they can reopen it.
Okay, and you think it can be a safe reopening?
Absolutely. We've got 11,000 shipments in there, 15 years, and this is the first problem. It's a process by which we should learn a lot. We need to demand better performance in the day-to-day activities, but the underlying project is very safe.
Very good. Well, thank you, Representative
Well, thank you
Pearce,
very much. I've enjoyed the
coming.
conversation.
Appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in tonight. This has been Fronteras, Changing America. I'm Monica Ortiz Uribe.